OpenAI benchmarked it at 4,340 times faster than traditional method. Basically, we can build a whole course with all the slide deck in under 10 minutes. Otherwise, you're just sitting strapped in a race car and you're going to feel speed, but you may not feel safe speed.
Today's guest is someone who's seen multiple waves of technology shape real businesses. Joe DiDonato has led companies, built platforms, and now focuses on designing AI that actually feels human.
Guess who's coming to dinner? Wouldn't it be great to bring back some of the great minds of the past and invite them over to your home for a dinner discussion?
I'm really excited to dive into this conversation with Joe.
We can start, and but before even we begin, thanks a lot, Joe, for joining in, and it'll be a fun conversation.
Okay.
So let's start. So okay, so I'll first give a quick brief and welcome to CB Experts, where we explore how AI, design, and human intelligence are covering to shape the future of learning and landscape. And today's guest is someone whose career truly bridges human and machine intelligence. Joe is a US Air Force veteran, lifelong entrepreneur, and one of the world's most respected voices in AI-driven education. He's the president of eSource AI University, where he's pioneering a framework called Vibe Coding 2.0 and Vibe Coding 3.0. Systems that teach AI how to feel human at a very emotional context and even brainstorm new ideas. Earlier in his career, Joe scaled Oracle's America's education division from $2 million to $100 million and doubled PepsiCo's global education revenue in under 2 years. And today, he's helping organizations across industries from real estate to healthcare build emotionally intelligent systems that amplify human connection, collaboration, and trust. So let's deep dive into a fascinating conversation on designing AI that feels human with Joe. I'm not sure, Joe, if I've given everything, but there are so many things to cover for you.
Yeah, that happens when you get old. It's like, where do you want to cut it off and start from there? Yeah. Because you mentioned I'm an Air Force veteran, I have to just do a disclaimer. I'm here as a private citizen and not as an Air Force officer. I don't represent the government. It's just my private views, but I'm really happy to be in front of the veterans of your country, Saudi Arabia, and I hope we can share some of the things we're doing here for our vets that might be of use for your folks over there.
Absolutely, and very interesting thing. So, Joe, if you can give a brief about your journey so far, and
Okay.
how did you end up in the current domain of AI? What are the things which were the reasons or the motivations behind touching this with such a huge amount of experience? So, would love to understand your journey so far.
Yeah, I obviously worked for technology companies back when computers were just first arriving even. So that's always been a fun hobby for me. I used to like to make games on a Commodore 64. Boy, does that date me? But that's a very old piece of computing hardware. But it's been a journey like that on the technical side. And I like programming here in the U.S. I taught veterans how to do some code to build websites and so forth, to give them kind of a jump start to get in our world. There was one great story. It was the technology, by the way, was Drupal. There was one individual that came to class. He was a short order cook at a Burger King. I don't know if you have Burger Kings over there like McDonald's, but he minimum wage, and the class was about 25 miles north of us, and he would take the bus. It was a $2 round trip, but the days when he didn't have the extra $2, he used to ride his bike in and say he did it for the exercise, but we knew darn well it wasn't. It was 25 miles each way. So we tried to help him out by taking him to lunch. But he was in the very first class that I had done for the vets. And at the end, I discovered that not all of them knew how to put together a resume or put themselves in LinkedIn where all the companies could find them. So we did some of that. And then I arranged for a fair, employer fair, to come in. And he was the very first person to get hired. And his salary went, and it was a position in Vancouver. His salary went from, I don't know, back then it was probably $5 an hour to $90,000 a year. So we all just cheered. It was such a great success. He was a Navy cook. That's what he did in the military, and he came out and it was lost trying to convert into the civilian sector. So,
Wow.
But anyways, I've always been around technology. AI was kind of a fun thing for me. I love the fact that I didn't have to go through a million different search results to find an answer, and it was helped me. And it's certainly come a long way since then. But I love playing with AI. I think it can solve a lot of problems for us. And my big attempt is to not make it so hard for average people to use it, so they don't have to learn Python and all these other technologies. So I use no-code platforms and try to do it with conversational tools. So for us, our company is more about the methodology and the integration of the tools, and not so much the tools. So we don't care which tool gets bought by whom, as long as we can figure out how to use those tools to do something with it, to solve problems.
Yeah.
And so that's how I got into it. The first thing I did when I joined eSources, I built a tool to help them build courseware faster. And of course, back then it was always faster, right? And that thing now, when the first attempt, it was about 23 times faster than traditional methods. Now, OpenAI benchmarked it at 4,340 times faster than traditional methods. Basically, we can build a whole course with all the slide decks and video trailers, in under 10 minutes. So that was the first thing. And then, now it's moving into vibe coding, and 2.0 was to make it more humanistic. 3.0 was to make it creative. So that's a quick ending to a long story.
Wow. No, this is interesting. So, for anyone to understand, what exactly is this vibe coding 2.0 and 3.0? Like, if you can help us understand.
Yeah. So one of the things that we focus on as technologists is the efficiency of what we're building, right? And I'm guilty of that myself. And so one of the things that it did was it was hard to relate to. I was working with a hospital system out of New York in the United States. Thousands of hospital clinics and hospitals and so forth, that facilities they operate. And the problem we were solving is burnout and stress. The nurses here, especially post-COVID and thereafter, just have a heck of a time. The influx of people into the hospitals, the loss of staff. So people were calling in sick or sent home because they didn't want to spread it to the patients. And so it was just 1 out of 2 nurses in the U.S., I'm sure all over the world the same way, suffer from burnout. Doctors, 62% of all doctors suffer from burnout. And there's a lot of turnover. They go into private practice, and the hospitals lose them and so forth. So what we were getting from trying to address burnout with a thing called cognitive behavior therapy,
Mhm.
we're getting these Likert scales. On a Likert scale of 1 to 5, how stressed do you feel today? Pick a number. And it was, well, I don't know if I'm a 3 or 4. And what we did was to change it to speak in their language and speak naturally. So I'll go through the levels so you understand how we were using it to triage the people. Level 1 might be, I don't feel like I have enough time to talk to to take care of all my patients. The next level down is, I'm starting to skip all my breaks because there's not enough time to take care of all the patients. Next level, I'm starting to skip meal breaks because there's not enough time. The next level is, I'm working extra hours at my shift for free just so I don't leave a patient in danger by not recording something in their files, if you will. And then the fifth one is, I can't sleep at night. I just think about things that I've missed. So now the physicians and nurses can relate to those scenarios a lot easier than, how stressed are you feeling right now on a scale of 1 to 5? It just, it was just too clinical for them. So then we started making it tell stories. As the therapy was going on, would you like to hear how a similar person in your capacity handled that situation? Yes. And there's, it's the psychology of relating to a peer that comes in there. And so it's more the psychology and the emotional intelligence that we were coding into it. So that's what 2.0 was. So kind of a long way to describe it, but it was to make it more relatable so that it's more like a conversation between two friends, two colleagues, than an academic kind of a presentation.
Interesting. And what phases it towards 3.2?
3.0 was to teach it to be collaborative and to brainstorm with you and teach it how to do things like have a collaborative session. For instance, to teach it how to do that, I had to give it tons of different examples because I couldn't explain how to do creativity. I could just give examples of it. So I just kept feeding it more and more examples until it got it. So the first one, just to give you a couple examples, I said, if you put a fashion designer in front of, I had to talk to Beverly Hills Magazine, so I prepared that one ahead of time. I said, if you put a fashion designer in front of a blank sheet of art paper and you say, okay, do the fall fashions, they're probably going to sit there for a while and not do anything because the brain doesn't work like that unless they have something already in mind. But if you then take pictures of little outfits and put them all the way around the board, different styles of clothing. Let's say you're designing evening gowns. It had all different styles around the board. Then your brain cuts and pastes things together. So it'll take a shoulder treatment from one with a neck treatment, with a back treatment and a skirt treatment, and create not something new, but it evolves to the next style that no one has seen. And now that next style becomes a picture that goes on the side of the artboard. And so it's the creative process is a state of evolution. And then the other tough one that I had to make it understand is not staying in the same discipline to solve the problem. As humans, we do that. We can't, if we're dealing with luggage, we're trying to make it lighter. We're trying to make it out of harder titanium. but it for 100 years or more, we've been luggage around before someone says, "Hey, why don't we take the wheels off of that scooter over there and put them on the side of the luggage bag and have a handle that telescopes and we can pull it." Oh, yes, and it's like our brain doesn't solve it that way because the wheels aren't from the luggage to begin with. So we had to teach it to go across disciplines. So I did it. There was a lot of examples. I gave it different test cases, and then I said, are you ready yet to understand how to do creativity and brainstorming? And finally it said, I think so, to put something up, and I go, nope, that's not right yet. And then it was kind of like, well, I don't want to use a very technical term, but it was a little bit like finding out how to keep making it get better and better. If you had read my last post this morning, we were talking about two pieces of technology that we use in the system. One is a way of gradient boosting, it's called. So it's trying to figure out from a lot of data, okay, if I focus on this, and this, how close do I come to the right answer? It's not close enough. Okay, how about if I add this, and that gets me to the right answer? Neck closer, but still not perfect. And it keeps doing this gradient boost, until you get there. And that's what we had to do to teach it how to be creative. So that's how we got it there. So now I sat one afternoon and just invented things. I said, I'm lugging these 5-gallon bottles of clean water into the house, and they're 45 pounds each, and I got to lift it to the top of the water cooler to put it there. I need some help. And it said, well, here's some disciplines we can check. How about exoskeletons? And I go, what is that here? And then it said, how about using hand trucks and with special apparatus that adapts to the bottles? And I mean, it came up with several good ideas that I was very happy with to do it. And I have a small investment in a water company here, and these poor guys are going up and down 3 flights of stairs with hundreds of bottles every day. So they actually have these exoskeletons you strap on your waist. You can get them on Amazon, and they go down and and there's a spring load, and they actually help pick your legs up as you're walking. So I go, well, who knew that was out there? So I would never have known to think. It's like I didn't know it existed, so how could I think of it? It was the bot. So it's my bot. And what I taught it also to do is, if it doesn't know the answer, it goes out with my persona, my skepticism on what is clickbait versus what is real, knowledge out there, and to pull it back in. And then we set the bots to 0, deterministic levels, so no creativity. So it comes back with pretty accurate results, and it doesn't hallucinate like on CBT and Chat GPT.
Yeah.
Because the 0, it's only picking. All AI is doing is just picking the next word, as you know.
Yeah.
So it could be code, it could be a language, it could be anything. So if we say 0, it's picking only between 1 or 2 different words, right? And it keeps doing that and creating the probability. Chat set at 50%. That's its normal setting, unless you tell it to set it at 0. And so just, as illustration, instead of 1 or 2 words, you got 50 to 100 words to choose from. So it picks one of those, and another 50 to 100, and eventually it could hallucinate. But it's got all the data. It's getting more accurate every year because it's got all of our data. We're the test bed that, like we built things like LinkedIn. We're building AI.
Yeah.
So,
This is interesting. So for developers and product teams, let's say sitting in India, who would want to understand and use it in a practical direction, how should they and what they should, from where they should start with and what they should aim for, and how can this impact and transition their products or their engineering activities to the next level? Like, uh, if you can give some insights on that.
Yeah, I think you have to look to the user's application first, right? So the first time we tried it, and I've told the story, there was a woman that came to my workshop, and after the workshop, she asked if she could speak with me, and she said her husband was in stage 4 cancer, and I go, wow. And I was teaching them Vibe Coding 2.0 at the time. This was back in January of this year, and she said, "Do you think you could capture my husband's knowledge and essence like we were doing in the class?" And I said, "Probably." You have to be very careful on curating the information. For instance, if I was building a bot, I couldn't put our conversation together because the bot wouldn't know the difference between your pattern of thinking and mine. So I'd have to strip yours out and just put mine in. So we learned that hard lesson really quick on it, and so we knew we had to change that. But in the middle of all that, of course, he passed away, and I lost contact with her. So maybe she'll hear one of these things and come back, and we'll figure it out. But I took that information, and then a naval commander, former naval commander and nuclear physicist that I knew came and asked if I would do it for him. And so we did. And he had a book that was out. It's called My Curious Life. If my grandchildren ask, tell them this. And so it was perfect because he wrote it. I said, "Did you ghostwrite it? Have it ghostwritten?" He said, "No, I wrote it all." So it's loaded with all of my errors and so forth. And so I said, "Well, actually, that's perfect. So I need that book." That became part of the knowledge base for this. And then the tuning was a process that we use to go through it and to detect tones and everything that he's comfortable with. You have to put guardrails on it. Don't give out legal advice and so forth. Especially in an application like this, where the person may be passed away and the spouse is asking questions about, should I date this guy? You don't want the bot interfering with that. That's the uncanny valley we talk about. It could impact the what's the word? The grieving process.
Yeah, emotional side of the thing.
Yeah. So there's a guardrail on there that says if a question like that comes up, it's not worded this way, but if a question like that comes up, refer the person to her friends and peers and professional guidance, and don't offer that advice without saying, "Hey, I'm just a bot." You don't want to. That would be the non-vibe coding 2.0. "Hey, I'm just a bot. You can't ask me that." No, because she'd never come back to the bot. So it was that sort of thing. So we do this intake form. It's kind of like a white glove treatment right now. And we're getting closer and closer to having the exact methodology in place, so we don't have to keep reinventing pieces. I've started to modularize it. So that's that kind of an application. But then you have these workhorses that companies want. I think Mark Benioff, who runs Salesforce. He said there's something like 10 million calls a year that his people can't get to that are all sales leads. So he doesn't have my application, but he uses Slack, and it's a texting application to try to qualify those leads. Yeah. Mine, of course, is a conversation, and we can actually push that lead through telephony to a specific person. So you'd have to know it was a sales rep, and then now you're sitting down and say, okay, who's my best sales rep? It's probably somebody who's a consultative seller,
Agreed.
versus, a transactional seller that just takes orders. It's somebody who has to go out and understand things. And you build that profile. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that sets the tone. And then, the other applications are like I was saying, that therapy one. Now we need a medical professional and that subject matter expert who knew what cognitive based therapy is. I can show you how these operate and show you a couple different ones so you can see how they operate differently. So it really depends on the use. One of the big problems we're having here in the US is people of my age are starting to retire from companies and taking all their intellectual property with them. And, so all the things they learned the hard way, they can't pass on to the new employees.
Yeah.
So that was one of the first questions I got hit with. Can you build something like that? And I said, sure. You have to work it out with the person yourself. So, if you're going to use his brain, we'll take care of them.
And this path you have chosen, even if we have, let's say, AI using LLMs, then we may go towards robotics, we may go towards biomechanical engineering with AI. This stays relevant throughout. That is, it is important that somehow the literacy covers this aspect of humanizing it.
Yeah.
And that becomes very critical and important.
Yeah, and I think that's the part that'll make it more adaptable. More people. Right now, everybody's afraid of it, but if it starts talking, like it's a helping person, I think it changes the dynamics. Just like
entire perception mindset.
Yeah, just like when you're a teacher and a student, that's a different dynamic than just somebody you interviewed off the street, right? So, so it's that collaboration that I think it will make it more usable. And there's lots of things we're trying to solve. We made a tutor for the kids that were, I don't know if just because I came out of education, I know the research. Back in the 80s, there was a guy, I think he's still around, Benjamin Bloom. He was an educational researcher that you probably know, have heard about Bloom's taxonomy. But he did a 4-year study on the best way to teach the kids. And he compared classroom teaching with mastery learning with one-on-one tutoring. And after 4 years, they discovered, obviously, that one-on-one tutoring had the best results. In fact, 98% of the kids that were tutored one-on-one outperformed the kids in the classroom that were trained just in the classroom. So it was called the 2 Sigma problem, because how do you scale that? How do you give every kid in the world a tutor? So now we have AI, see? And if I can humanize it, so like on the one I did for that naval commander, if he has a grandkid come in and they trigger something that says, "Grandpa, can you help me with homework?" Grandpa triggers off our adaptive learning part. So he knows it's a kid. The sentences have to be shorter. The words have to be shorter until he discovers what grade they're in, and then it can come back up. And then he's like I am. All the kids that are just getting ChatGPT to write their papers and answer their questions, their grades are going down because they've lost the critical thinking part, understanding how to solve the problem. So the bot that I've built, of course, the kids don't like as much because it doesn't give the answers, it hints. So it's called scaffolding, and as they get smarter, then we reduce the amount of scaffolding and keep reducing it until they're getting the answers right away. But I'm competing with ChatGPT that just says, "Oh, here's the answer. Don't worry about it. Go play." But it'd be great to give that kind of a tool to every kid on the planet. Imagine what that might unleash.
Yeah, the important factor which comes with that is the one-on-one personalized aspect which gets into the picture. And that is why in 80s, I think the success happened, because when it's one-on-one, it's personalized, which basically even modify the aspect in which the person gets trained to a certain extent, even if the same person is training.
Yeah. Yep. I just think there's a lot of applications. Circling back around to the veteran conversation, one of the things we're doing here is to address PTSD. Is that a familiar term? Yeah.
Yes, yes,
I
yes.
mean, we send our young men into terrible situations, and and it's not necessarily them. It's first responders, firemen and police
Mm,
that we have to use, and it manifests itself in a lot of strange ways. They get angry,
mm,
uh, and sometimes the people that they work with don't understand what's going on for them, and so they end up getting fired, and then they feel even more isolated, like they don't belong. And when you're in the service, if you indicate you have PTSD,
mm.
you're not going to get out in the field anymore. They're gonna bench you.
Yeah.
So it's a negative thing if you're on one of the, like we call them our Navy SEAL teams, and the special operations folks that we have in the Army and Air Force and Navy. So there's a reluctance to even report that, but we are proposing that for our veterans, and it's kind of like that tool we're building for burnout.
Mm,
I can show you how it operates, because it's not how you think
mm.
it should operate, uh, and you'll see. I'll give it some crazy stress situation and see how it handles it. You want to try that?
Wow. uh, Absolutely.
Absolutely. All right. Okay. Let's see if I can. Let me get it. I opened a couple of these up as we started talking.
Yeah,
Here, let me see. I think I have to share that exact window.
yeah.
Oh my goodness. I have so many windows open. It's hard.
No, no,
Uh,
it's absolutely
oh,
fine.
here.
Okay, perfect. Yeah,
Okay. So here's the share.
yeah.
All right. So this is the therapeutic bot. It's still in the MVP level, so minimum viable product. But just so you see how it operates, so I'm going to click this. It starts it,
Yeah.
and then I have to click this button, or I could type in here. Click this
Okay.
button. Conversation.
Okay.
Hello, how can I help you today?
Hi. I was wondering if you could tell me how I should interact with you.
Absolutely, I'm glad you asked. You can talk to me just like you would with a supportive colleague or mentor. Share what's on your mind, whether it's stress, burnout, tough shifts, or just wanting to check in. I'll listen, ask gentle questions, and offer practical tools based on cognitive behavioral therapy, all tailored for healthcare work. If you're not sure where to start, you can simply tell me how you're feeling or ask about a specific challenge. What's bringing you here today?
Well, before we get into that, what is cognitive behavioral therapy? I'm not familiar with it.
Great question. Cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, is a practical approach that helps people understand how their thoughts, feelings, and actions are connected, especially under stress. The idea is that when we're overwhelmed, our minds can fall into patterns that make things feel even harder, like harsh self-talk or unhelpful habits. CBT teaches you to notice those patterns, gently question them, and try small changes that can make a real difference in how you feel and cope. It's not about fixing you. It's about giving you tools to handle tough moments with more balance. Would you like to hear how this might apply to stress or burnout in healthcare?
Sure, I'd like to see how it applies to me.
Absolutely. In healthcare, stress can build up quickly. Long shifts, high stakes, and constant responsibility. CBT helps by breaking down how a tough moment unfolds, what happened, what you thought, how you felt, and what you did next. For example, if you're overwhelmed by a sudden patient load, you might think, I can't keep up, feel anxious or frustrated, and then skip your break to push through. CBT helps you spot these patterns, challenge the harsh thoughts, and try small, healthier actions, like taking a breath or asking for help. Would you like to walk through a recent stressful moment together and see how this cycle plays out for you?
Sure. So let me tell you what happened. I was the doctor in charge of the ER when we had a 3-car accident occur. We had a reoccurrence of COVID, so we were down to minimal staff. The staff that came in, we sometimes they had the symptoms, so we sent them home. So we had minimal staffing, and there was also a school bus involved with elementary school kids, young kids. I was in charge of triage because I was the senior member there. And my instinct was to give the children priority over the adults, just because they would have a hard time telling us what was wrong with them and so forth. Unfortunately, that was a mistake because we lost one of the people, passengers in the car. They died. They should have had priority in the triage session, and I own that problem. So I'm feeling pretty stressed out right now. I've got to talk to my team tomorrow morning. I don't know where to begin. I don't even know how to get my mind set right. Can you help me?
Thank you for sharing all of that. It sounds like you've been carrying a heavy load, and it's completely understandable to feel stressed and unsettled after such a difficult situation. In moments like these, it's common for our minds to replay what happened and focus on what we wish we'd done differently, especially when lives are involved. That sense of responsibility is part of what makes you a caring leader, but it can also weigh you down. Let's take a gentle look at what's happening inside you right now. When you think about talking to your team tomorrow, what thoughts or worries come up first? Are you feeling more guilt, fear of judgment, or something else? We can start by naming those feelings and then work together to find a way to approach your team and yourself with a bit more compassion. Would you like to talk through those thoughts and feelings together?
Sure, but I think we'll put a button in this now because I just wanted to show them how the difference of the humanistic approach would affect the interaction. Thank you very much for your help.
Thank you for sharing your experience and for exploring this approach with me. If you or your team ever want to talk more or need support, I'm here. Take care of yourself and let me know if I can help in the future.
So when's the
Wow.
last time you had a bot talk to you like that?
Wow.
You
Wow.
see?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and that's the difference in what we're doing. So when we now go into the for the PTSD, we haven't picked a name. The holding name is Battle Buddy. That's how they think of each other. So it's a colleague kind of talking them through. It's going to be sensitive to any reluctances that are there. We have to have a whole different kind of interaction because nobody wants to admit they got PTSD.
Yeah.
So it's a more difficult thing. I think people are more comfortable saying, "Hey, I'm really burned out."
Yeah.
I drive home. I don't even see the sun anymore. The sunset. I'm on autopilot, and that's an early stage of burnout. But what I wanted to show you is how you can make the interaction seem like it's a colleague.
I Wow.
Yeah.
This opens up so many doors and the kind of use cases. Think about the side where at this point of time there's a transition going on in the engineering domain where people who used to be engineers 7-8 years experience at Python and Django or Next.js. They are basically having a tough time in terms of evolving themselves into AI part, or there'll be a scenario where they may have the current path may not go into that relevant scenario for them in terms of coding activities, because that is changing with cursor and other tools which are available. So there's a transition going on. And then the students who are coming up, who are basically giving their 11th 12th examinations, they are basically in colleges. A lot of them are also going through a depression phase a lot of times, and this kind of a system is available for them to basically helps to get some sense of motivation and direction in a humanized sense. This just opens up a lot. Like the other side, which I feel is like helping them understand learning how to learn.
Mhm.
So that is also important in terms of doing this activity.
Yep. And the hardest thing is going to be to teach our kids. I worry that the technology is dumbing them down because they're just getting the answers because, well, that's way off in the future where it may impact me, right? They're thinking, but they're not learning how to solve problems that don't even exist today.
Yeah.
And the critical thinking is probably the most valuable thing employers are looking for right now. They want people who can solve complex problems.
Yeah.
And if you don't know how to solve problems, you're going to be lost in that. So we got a lot of hard work to do. I don't know if you want to see Vibe Coding 3.0, but I can show you that if you want to take a look at it at some point here.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what I feel like that we may or we should be doing more conversation, because there'll be a lot of audience who will be very intrigued with the thing which you've just shown and the kind of discussion we had, and which is very relevant and very important. So yeah, I think with the time, I have one important question to ask,
Sure.
and then maybe we can take a glimpse of Vibe, or let's start with Vibe 3.0, and then I'll ask my last question to you. So yeah, let's start.
It's okay. It doesn't matter what the sequence is, but I want to make sure that the other thing that we're seeing here, just so you know, before we move away from Vibe 2.0, is a lot of people don't want to sit through it. And we learned how to text each other, and we get stuck on things like TikTok all day long in the social media, right? And so everything's fast, right? So nobody wants to read books. No, the people that are finishing the books each day is getting less and less, and they don't want to go that route. They don't want to go to class. They don't want to read books. And so what happens here is that we can catch them at that point of need. We don't have to. Well, let me tell you how cognitive behavior therapy works in detail before I solve your problem. It's just like you saw, I could jump in at any point.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and so this is, I think, the new delivery modality that we've got to put out in our workplace. Who has the time to learn everything there is about a product and service when a customer asks a specific question?
Yeah.
You got to be able to dive right into that piece, and it has to be. So anyways, that's that side of it. Let me get
and it makes things very clear for an individual who is basically engaging, and the kind of engagement level which it creates with giving the right context at the right time. And that's what is important. And you just said something which is very important: the kind of modality of information transfer that's going to have an evolution. And this may be one of the biggest evolution which happens in terms of the conversations, especially with these AI systems.
Yeah, I think we got to pay attention to it. I don't think I've solved everything around it, but I'm making it my purpose to try to get us there so that we do it a little bit better. But let me try sharing my bot. Hopefully,
Absolutely.
See how. And I'm only sharing this because you folks can actually.
And just a quick question: are
Yeah.
these also available for anyone to use right now? They can just go on a URL and use it.
Yeah, I'll give you the link to the website. You can go on and just have the
Perfect.
experience with it. Let's hope.
Yep.
So I've got a lot in mind. I got not only 2.0, 3.0, I've got some other things like a coaching element, a teaching element, and things like that. So we're still having a little bit of problem with the technology platform we're writing on, which is 11 Labs, because how they deal with knowledge.
Yeah.
If you put a book in a knowledge bank, it reads through the entire book before it responds to you. So they have to use RAG,
Yeah.
So that it shortens it, and RAG is sometimes not so accurate. But anyways, let's hope it works well. I'm just going to do it on the shared screen instead of on the bot here. Sorry.
Hi, this is Joe. What do you want to talk about?
Hi, Joe. Maybe you're on, and there's a whole bunch of people listening to you. You want to tell them a little bit about yourself before we jump into brainstorming mode?
Absolutely. I'd be glad to set the stage. I'm Joe DiDonato, a lifelong learner, entrepreneur, and someone who's spent decades helping people and organizations grow. I've worn a lot of hats: Air Force officer, business leader, educator, and maybe most importantly, a grandfather who believes curiosity and empathy are the real superpowers. I see technology, especially AI, as a mirror that helps us rediscover what matters most: our values, our creativity, and our ability to connect. My passion is guiding people to think a little deeper, feel a little more, and act with purpose. So whether you're here to brainstorm, learn, or just get inspired, I'm ready to dive in with you. What's the challenge or idea you'd like to explore together today?
Yeah, let's go into brainstorming mode. Let me poll the listeners here for a question. Aditya, what kind of a thing do you want to brainstorm?
Okay. So I want to brainstorm about the part
Great,
where,
I love the energy of a group brainstorm. Aditya, I'm all ears. What's on your mind? Is there
yeah,
a problem you're trying to solve? A new idea you want to develop? Or maybe a project you're curious about? The more you
yeah.
can share about your goal or challenge, the more creative and useful our session will be. Whenever you're ready, just let me know what you'd like us to explore together.
So I want to talk about quantum encryption and the kind of impact it is going to create in the next 5 years and what is going to change with that.
I am here and ready whenever you are. Aditya or anyone else listening, feel free to jump in with
Can't
your
hear.
idea,
Yeah, maybe
question,
you can just translate my question.
worries at all. Sometimes the best
Okay.
ideas take a moment to surface, or maybe there's a little technical
Joe, wait.
hiccup.
Hold on a second. I'll tell you what he's after. He wants to talk about cloud computing. Is that
Quantum encryption.
quantum encryption?
Yeah, and in the next
Holy
5 years, what is going to be an impact on that?
Okay, quantum encryption, which I don't know natively, so you'll probably have to go out and find the answers. Are you prepared to talk about quantum encryption and then get into a little brainstorming session to see how it might impact things out in the world?
That's a fascinating direction. Quantum encryption is one of those topics that sits right at the edge of what's possible in technology and security. While I don't have personal experience with quantum encryption, I can certainly help explain the basics, explore its potential impact, and guide a creative brainstorm about how it might change the world. To get us started, would you like a simple overview of what quantum encryption is and why it matters? Or should we jump straight into imagining its real-world uses and challenges? Let me know what feels most helpful for the group.
Well, I think we've got a mixed set of experience with quantum encryption, so maybe give us a simple overview of what it is and why it matters as a start.
Absolutely. Let's break it down simply. Quantum encryption is a new way of securing information using the strange rules of quantum physics rather than just math and computers. The most famous method is called quantum key distribution, which lets two people share a secret code in a way that, if anyone tries to eavesdrop, the act of spying actually changes the message, so you know right away if your line isn't secure. Why does this matter? Because as quantum computers get stronger, they could break many of today's encryption methods. Quantum encryption offers a way to stay ahead, making our data and communications much safer in a future where old security tricks might not work. Does that make sense so far? Or would you
Yeah.
like a little more detail before we brainstorm how this could change things?
No, I'm getting a lot of nods, so everybody understands. But yeah, let's go into brainstorm mode and talk about how this might change things and what we should what we can do together.
Wonderful. Let's let our curiosity lead the way. Imagine a world where quantum encryption is everywhere. Banks, hospitals, governments, even your phone. Suddenly, eavesdropping and data theft become almost impossible, but so does hiding mistakes or secrets. Trust in digital systems could skyrocket, or maybe new kinds of privacy debates would emerge. Now let's cross-pollinate. What if quantum encryption made voting online truly secure? Or protected medical records so well that only you and your doctor could ever see them? On the flip side, how might criminals or authoritarian regimes use this power? And what new jobs or industries might spring up to manage, teach, or regulate this technology? What ideas or concerns does this spark for you in the group? Where do you see the biggest opportunities or the biggest risks?
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. Let me see if I can pull an answer. What you want to pursue any of those?
Yeah, definitely. The part where
That sounds like a great
Wait,
approach.
hold up.
Sometimes
Joe, hold up a minute. I'm going to get you the answer.
yeah, the part where the kind of
Of
impact
course,
it
I'll
is going
pause
to
right here
have.
and wait for your update. Take your
Yeah.
time. Just let me know when you're ready to continue or if there's a specific direction the group
I
wants
got to
to
make it stop
explore.
doing
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So it's like the banks, which basically are currently encrypted with, let's say, 256
Just
bit
checking
or
in. Are you
double
ready to
triple.
share the answer? Or would you like a little more time? I'm
Joe.
here whenever you're ready to continue.
Joe, go into pause mode and don't speak until we come back, okay?
Yeah. So how fast banks need to evolve their encryption method?
Yeah. So the questions are around banks and how fast they have to evolve their encryption processes to protect it. Any ideas on the approaches that we might take there?
That's a thoughtful question, and it gets right to the heart of the challenge banks face. Banks live and breathe trust, so they can't afford to lag behind when it comes to encryption, especially with quantum threats on the horizon. The smartest approach is to start preparing now, even before quantum computers are mainstream. First, banks should audit all their current systems to see where traditional encryption is used and where the biggest risks are. Then they can begin testing quantum safe encryption methods. These
Yeah.
are new algorithms designed to resist quantum attacks, even if they're not quantum based themselves. Some banks are also exploring quantum key distribution for their most sensitive data, layering it on top of existing protections. The key is to treat this as a journey, not a one-time fix. Continuous monitoring, regular updates, and close collaboration with technology partners will help banks stay ahead. What do you think? Does this spark any ideas for how your group might approach the problem? Or would you like to brainstorm some specific scenarios together?
Let's brainstorm some specific scenarios.
All right, let's imagine a few real world situations and see where quantum encryption could make a difference for banks. Picture a scenario where a bank is transferring millions between countries. With quantum encryption, even if someone tries to intercept the transaction, the bank would know instantly and could stop the transfer before any harm is done. Or think about customer data. Imagine a world where your personal information is so well protected that even if hackers break into the system, they can't read anything without triggering an alert. Now let's flip it. What if a competitor bank adopts quantum encryption first? How might that shift customer trust or even regulatory expectations? Which of these scenarios feels most urgent or interesting to your group? Or is there another banking situation you'd like to explore with quantum encryption in mind?
So I have a question to you, Joe. We can
Okay, I
pause
think
this.
we're
Yeah.
gonna. Should we just stop? And
Yeah, we can stop this.
okay,
Stop.
yeah. All right, I'll
Very
stop.
interesting. So this is basically the 3.0 which you talked about. Uh, uh, like, what's the difference so that the audience understand between a usual Chat GPT OpenAI audio mode which is present there, which they use, versus what we just saw, so that the audience is able to clearly understand the difference between these two.
Yeah, so you can simulate some of this on ChatGPT. You can ask for 10 ideas on person, topics for books or fiction books or something like that, and it'll work because its creativity level is higher. In fact, it probably will shift to 80% at that point just because it knows. So one of the things I had to do without breaking the reliability of what you're hearing was I had to still keep the deterministic level at 0. So it's at 0 creativity. Now, how do you make it think when it's got those clamps around it? So there's a module in there that gives it permission to go out and find the correct information to bring back. Hopefully that was all correct. I didn't know if it was
No,
right
it was absolutely on point. Yeah.
Yeah, because it might be the difference might be chat would bring back something that wasn't true about that. We could try it and see the difference. But so number one, so it had my persona sitting on top of the search. So it was not going to allow clickbait to come in, somebody who's some sort of conspiratorial person that got a lot of clicks. It's not going to take that. It's going to test it first. So now it's back in, but now I've got to let it think. So what I tell it to do is that it has permission to come up with new ideas, to use more adjectives, to use more storytelling language, so that it can take that information and help us determine other things to do with it. So it knows to go across disciplines. We didn't give it that kind of test. In actuality, it wasn't more like the luggage and the wheels kind of test, but it would go across disciplines and say, here's something from this discipline that you should consider, and how about this discipline here? And then what it'll do is keep bringing in different disciplines until one strikes. And then you say, those don't sound right yet. Can you give me another? So you can go in and play with this if you want. If you go to, should I put in the chat? Where's the chat?
So what we are going to do when the video goes live, it's going to be present in the comments. So maybe what we'll do is put it in the description comments, so anyone can start with the demo of that, to go there and view it, understand it, and use it. I have one important question to ask, and before I do that, you are in US, you're in which state, as well as what's your time zone, so that people know that it's night there.
It is. It's 10:41 my time, but.
And where are you right now?
I'm in Arizona, which is, it doesn't change from daylight to standard time, and this evening it's the rest of the country switches over to standard time, and we don't. So our hours are always shifting. It drives the calendar functions crazy. It's us in Hawaii that are just obstinate about changing our time.
Nice. So my last question to you, and definitely an interesting thing to get your insights on. So at CBX, at this point of time, we are teaching the Indian engineers that AI literacy isn't just about prompt engineering. It's about empathy, communication, and systems thinking. And when we are talking about it, we have never gone to the level where you are coming from and the kind of things which you're doing. What is the advice for educators or leaders shaping the next generation of AI talent around this aspect?
Yeah, I think, we have to give attention in both areas. Think of a car. The engine has to be fast. It has to be powerful. So you don't give up on any of that you're doing, making it faster and powerful. But then there's the ride inside the car.
Yeah.
And how does that feel? How's the noise level in there? How's the sound system work? How do the seats feel? That makes the experience of the ride enjoyable. Otherwise, you're just sitting strapped in a race car, and you're going to feel speed, but you may not feel safe speed.
Very interesting analogy you put in.
Yeah. So I think you have to just pay attention to both. You have to look at the audience you're trying to attract, and while it may be impressive at speeds and feeds, I mean, I was impressing myself with the speed of our class, our courseware builder. But it still needed that other touch. It needed to come back and humanize it so that the course is related to the people that we were trying to teach. So in the prompt optimizer that I built that goes along with that system, it does that. It says, here's the language to use based upon who I said the audience was. And it says, and then do these modules. It's more like a specification document when you're done. So it not only addresses the required output, but how to output it. So that was the slight twist that we made on our prompt optimizer, and they work together well on it. So you just have to do both. Yeah, you have to think the car analogy, and then you'll get it.
Yes.
It's the engine, and then the ride, the experience inside.
Yep. Wow, this is fun. And I think we covered a lot of interesting things. A lot of things are remaining, and just loving this conversation. But maybe we'll plan for the next time for the remaining questions which I had. But this is going to be so fun for people to understand the design and human-centric AI, how and what it is, and how the impact of it is, why it is important, and most importantly, I'll share the product links so that they can actually use it, see how it works, and maybe can be useful for a lot of people out there. But yes, thanks a lot, Joe. Thank you very much. You have any last insights for the audience? Anything that you want to say?
Now we got to think about 4.0, which I think is going to be the toughest one, because I think we're going to have to look at various cultures around the world. What sounds right here might not sound the right way in China, Russia. I don't know. Pick a nation out there. So I think that's going to be the harder part. Although my bot can speak in many languages, and I added a few because of your audience. So you didn't have to speak to it in English, by the way. They should know that. I still think there's a cultural difference that we had to learn. I bumped into that when I was running education for Oracle and PeopleSoft. Going to Japan, the culture is very different there. And even in England, we speak the same language, but their idea of what goes on a PowerPoint slide is not the same as ours. Ours is no more than 6 words in each thing. Theirs is slam as much in there as you can on the slide. Otherwise, you don't have any knowledge. You're just, a fruitcake who's trying to sell us stuff. That was the cultural difference, and we're the same language base. In Japan, there was this notion of trust. You have to have trust first before you can collaborate on things. So imagine that the differences that 4.0 will have to drive. And that's a tough one. I think that's where I'm going to need to have all your people involved as well. How do we take that sensitivity into it? I think it's not going to be that hard. The tuning will be, here's the culture, and then you define it. This is
adapt towards it. Yes. Yeah. So it's like it brings back to your point of the kind of difference which it creates when it is one-to-one training versus doing it with a bunch of people, because again, the personalization at the cultural level, personalization at the intellectual level, personalization on a corporate or company standards and regulations, and that culture level. So it's like there are a lot of things which basically sink in, and maybe 4.0 is driving that from different angle, which basically involves the culture side, which adds a big value to it. And again, that takes it to a more personalized scenario. And that's what we can do with the current AI systems, that you can actually make it so personalized that it can actually help and even to grow faster in that domain. So wow, perfect. Thanks
There's
a lot, Joe.
much work to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you very much for
You're welcome.
coming here, having this kind of a discussion. We had a very powerful, engaging, and interesting conversation, Joe. And I'm very grateful for you to join in the call.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'd be glad to come back anytime we've done something better and can show it to you. But yeah, so there was a lot of stuff we didn't talk about. We talked about, there's
Yes.
a mastermind group concept and all that we're trying to build. And one of these things that we say tongue in cheek here, guess who's coming to dinner? Wouldn't it be great to bring back some of the great minds of the past and invite them over to your home for a dinner discussion? Why not?
Interesting. Yeah. No, so that means we have more discussions which are coming up now.
Yes. There's a lot of use cases here that we're thinking about, but we kind of like the idea of a distinguished speakers kind of a bureau that would be some of the great minds that have led many nations. The Nelson Mandelas, the John F. Kennedys, and Winston Churchills, and I don't know famous names from your nation, but I'm sure there's many. So having those people over to dinner, what this does is, even in a company, they have the senior chief operating or chief executive officer be able to talk to, if you're a Walmart, 2 million people.
Yeah.
All employees, and imagine a connection between senior management and those employees now. And, it just throws everything up into motion. We talk about 7 to 10 people you can manage. Well, maybe you can manage
Maybe
more.
70 or 700.
Yeah.
With this.
So lots of interesting dynamics that it impacts, when we're able to do these things. So.
And the kind of impact and motivation one gets if there is a direct connection and if it can happen, it's a big thing for those guys.
Yes, it's.
Yep. Perfect. But thank you very much again, and thanks a lot. Have a very good night to you, and
you too.
We'll talk soon.
All right.
Good day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Good night.